Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 174.
On today's show, you'll hear from Jeremy Koerber of Fit to Hunt about how to be a fit hunter so you can stay in your tree stand all day long. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin. And we're heading to St. Louis, and we're going to talk to Jeremy Koerber this morning with Fit to Hunt. Jeremy started his business about 12 months ago, kind of sort of right when Whitetail Rendezvous launched, and we're excited to catch up with him today. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
So, Jeremy, let's catch us up. It was 6-8 months ago you were on the show, and you're just getting kicked off. What's happening?
What's happening right now is that both from a St. Louis perspective and then nationally is we're starting to impact more outdoorsmen. And when I say outdoorsmen, it's men, it's women, it's kids. It's getting people to really understand the concept that the better prepared you are physically, the better performance that you're going to have in the field. And that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So when we're talking about different age range, different types of hunts. We're focusing today specifically on the whitetail aspect to it. What we're doing is really changing the face of what most people feel hunting should be about. And as you watch, the outdoor shows, you see what companies like Under Armour are doing. They're pulling, they're tying this together. And so our job is to help clientele make a link between, hey, this is where I am right now. I've got this hunt coming up, in the fall. I need to be prepared for it.
Thanks for that. And listeners, it's really important right now to focus on what you're doing. Two things, and Jeremy's going to pick this up in a second. The first thing is you should be scouting. You should be looking at places for food plots, mineral licks, changing up your stands because things change every single year. The second thing is getting fit. So, Jeremy, let's talk about the first part, the scouting part, and then roll that right into why it's important for whitetail hunters to be fit.
Oh, I think it's crucial. One of my clients and myself are entering into a new lease this fall, and we were walking the property 2 Fridays ago, and this is a large property, about 500 acres, up and down, through briars, through brush, through gullies and valleys, and the bottom line was, the gentleman I'm walking this property with is raving about the fact that he's able to do what he can do. Now, let's back up to this. You have to be able to walk the properties. You have to be able to scout those locations. If you're going to have to run a chainsaw, do some work, pole saws, all of this stuff happens now, like you said. We haven't even gotten into the concept yet of moving and hanging stands. So, you need to be doing your homework now. We were just on our farm over the last weekend, primarily scouting for turkeys, but also pulling camera cards, looking for sheds, and trying to get a good idea of where these, number one, what made it through season. Number two, where are these bucks hiding out at? Where are their sanctuaries? Where are they, changing their pattern to? And, it's just a blessing to be able to get out and do this, have my kids with me, focusing on the outdoor aspect, but also ingraining in them that, being able to walk up and down this farm is a plus.
Now, you mentioned the gentleman that was walking the land. He says, he feels that he's really good shape. And I think about in the warm-up, we talked about how flexibility is needed. I hunt along the Buffalo River in Buffalo County, and I've got a place I have to walk across the cornfield for a quarter mile. I go down a pretty steep hill. Then I get into a marsh. Then I get near the creek side, the river bank. Then I walk another quarter mile. So I'm in a good over a half a mile to my tree stand, and it's hard to get in because it's swampy and there's muck and there's trees that I got to step in. So correlate that, what I just explained, how I get to my tree stand, to being fit to hunt. What do I need to do? What does Bruce need to do to make sure he's going to be able to get in there at the age of 70?
I think at the age of 70, or really any age, we shouldn't even categorize it like that. You want to look at your fitness in 4 or 5 different components here. And the first is going to be your aerobic fitness. So, your heart health or your ability to, go walk, jog long distances. We're not jogging to our stands, but as you just said, you've got to walk a half mile into it carrying your gear. That's work. Second aspect to it is going to be your muscular strength and endurance. That's a big deal as well, because the stronger you are, the less energy you have to put down every time you stick that foot into the dirt. Or In the case of that swamp, when we train duck hunters, they're walking through marsh. We have to train the right muscles to be able to power through those areas, to climb if we need to climb. So that's point number 2. I think the third aspect to it is really looking at balance and agility. People don't think about that, but when you're traversing different terrains, whether it's rocky terrain or you're crawling over logs and stumps, that takes agility. So any program, it doesn't matter to me if you're age 18 or 88. If you're out there in the woods and you're hunting, we need to put elements of all of these things into your routine. Now, that means different things for different people, but on those aspects right there, the fourth I would look at would be overall body composition, and that's a tough one to really nail down too, because in order to be fit to hunt, you certainly do not need to look like the cover of a magazine, a fitness magazine. But again, case in point, we have one gentleman who a year ago was 60 pounds heavier than he is right now, and when he goes out in the field, he's not carrying that 60 pounds. So by losing body fat and focusing on strength, conditioning, flexibility, balance, and agility, he's a better hunter.
And I think about that, and I think about, I had a hip replacement.
Right.
I would, it was painful to hunt last fall, but mentally I just said I'm going to do it because I'm not going to let a fall go by. Mm-hmm. But just an adjunct to that, I have some muscle groups that really didn't work for 9 months. Now I'm having to go back to physical therapy and rebuild my muscle memory and everything else connected to that, so I can use those muscles effectively again. So listeners, guy, gal, even if you're young, it's really important to be fit, I think, mentally as well as physically. So we can get in and we can hunt hard. We can have the attention span that we need while we're in a tree stand to stay focused. Jeremy, talk to me a little about what I just said.
So I think where you're coming from right now is a scenario where you're doing the right thing. You've had your surgery. You're going through physical therapy. Once you've gone through the physical therapy where they, wave their hands over you and bless you and say, okay, Bruce, back to real life, what do you do then? And that's a crossroads for a lot of people. Some people feel, hey, I've made it through therapy and I can just go and do whatever I want and life's grand, and they do nothing additional. The smart money is to continue on with some type of program. So what I would encourage you to do would be to find someone who understands, A, what you just went through, B, can take the program and exercises that you were doing at your release from therapy and then continue on that path. Because what you're going to be doing is going to be vastly different than, a client A, B, and C that are going to walk through the door, but that still doesn't matter. You still have to be able to work on those areas that we talked about. It's just exercise selection, volume, frequency, the types. All of those things will be completely different for you. But if you apply the principles of a well-rounded program, you will get a benefit. I explained to my son last night, we had a practice baseball game, and he's always so worried about the talent level on the other side of the field. And I said, if you continue to work hard, you will improve. And if you improve 5%, 10%, 15%, you're helping your team. You don't have to be the star player with all the talent in the world. All you have to do is get a little bit better than what you were the day before. And that's how we would look at your specific scenario, Bruce, is to get the information that we need and then develop something that is appropriate and progress you then in the right fashion appropriately until you are doing what it is that you need to be doing.
Jeremy, let's just take a second, and for all the listeners throughout North America, if you want to get a hold of Jeremy, what's the best way to do that?
I think the best way to do it is you can do one or two things. You can visit my website, which is www.fit2huntperformance.com. So it's fit2huntperformance.com. Or you can simply give us a call, 314-807-8634. Let us know kind of what you're looking at. And then, again, we train people here in St. Louis, but we also work with people all over the country online and with some of our downloadable programs that we create for specific types of hunts.
What about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? How do they reach you there?
Facebook, I need you to go to, it's just Fit to Hunt, capital letters, Fit, T-O, Hunt. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram, same handles. And, first and foremost, let me step back just a second. When we started this program a year ago, the very first thing we wanted to do, again, we are personal trainers. This is our business. We combine the passion, and we're very blessed to be able to do what we love for a living. The first thing we wanted to do was to build a community. And what I mean by that is to really get people thinking about doing things different than what they did. And it doesn't matter to me if they're 70, 60, 50, 20, 18. The trend is the better shape that you're in, the more performance you're going to have in the field. And that's fishing, hunting, hiking, it doesn't matter. So what we would love, Bruce, no matter if you're working, if you're doing CrossFit, if you're doing something with another trainer, that's inconsequential to us. We want you on our Facebook sites. We want you on our Instagram because we're throwing out free content, whether it's blogs, whether it's exercise videos, whether it's nutritional tips. We do that on a daily basis. So if nothing else, hop on, follow us, and get a lot of free content that will help you get and stay fit to hunt.
Thanks for that, Jeremy. And community is all, that's what this whole thing's about at Whitetail Rendezvous. We're trying to bring great content to hunters, men, women, kids, all across North America, and you're part of that. So thanks for, being a friend and being part of what we're doing, and we look to be able to help you as you journey along. Let's switch it up and let's get back to the whitetails, because I know our listeners are looking for some big buck nuggets. And let's talk about some lessons learned from last fall that you're either going to do more of or I'm never going to do that again.
I think the biggest lesson, and I think we've all been there, is that, there's always, the last few years have been some very good bucks on camera. And sometimes those bucks materialize for us and sometimes they don't. Well, there was a point last year where I let a pretty good deer walk by that, the whole rest of the season I kind of kicked myself in the tail for that. And I've talked with a lot of friends in the industry. One good friend, Jeremiah Dowdery, he's from Field to Flight, and he's an outdoor chef. He lets nothing walk by, and I understand where he's coming from too. It's because you can't eat antlers. I get that. Patience is a big thing for me. So I found pictures of that same buck I let walk by just about a month ago, and he's still there. He made it through. Now this coming year, he will be a shooter. And I think that patience really paid off, because in late November, early December, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what did you do? Why did you had him? Well, yeah, I could, but I always tell, the people that I work with closely, once you put an arrow or a bullet in them, they kind of quit growing. So the thing is, that patience factor was the number one thing that I learned. I think number two, and that's where the lease concept is coming in. I'm blessed to have grown up on a farm in southeast Missouri, and I have access to some other properties. What I'm learning is that it never hurts to have another place to hunt here and there. So again, as I reach out to the outdoor industry and develop relationships with one gentleman, Brad Ganaway from Pro Outfitters, a fantastic outfitting organization in northern Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska, we're learning more about where we can go to target those big bucks, and that's where my evolution as a hunter has become. I've grown up in areas where maybe there's lots of deer, but not the big boys. So now I'm starting to focus in on where can I go and what kind of relationships do I need to develop to find the properties that will give me access to those big deer. And again, get to hunt and the relationships that I'm building with what I consider to be one of the greatest industries out there. I've not ran into anybody in this industry yet that is not just a class act great person. This is fun, my friends. This is fun getting to talk to people like you and get to learn, trying to set up hunts with people in different states. And I'm rambling here, but that's how I'm getting excited about stuff like this. It's exciting because, I thought hunting was something that, just because of my experiences as a kid growing up. Now that I'm 40 and in expanding my horizons, I'm learning so much more, even from people like yourself and your guests. It's amazing when you start to stretch yourself, which I can tie this right back into the whole training to hunt methodology. When you stretch yourself and you start to expand your mind into what might be possible, and things become possible, and it's just fantastic.
Thanks for that. And I was writing notes as fast, and then the post show, I'm going to ask you a couple of those names because I'd sure like to get a hold of them.
Absolutely.
And have them on the show. And the important thing is the passion. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard Jeremy get excited just about the hunt. Yeah, he let a buck go that, was he 3.5, 4.5 years old? I don't know. He's probably pushing that way. And was he 125 Pope and Young? Probably, maybe. But you've got to make a decision. And I started whitetail hunting in 1966, so 50 years anniversary coming up. And my buddy who brought me into the game, to his family farm along the Koerber River, we're going back there and we're going to have one heck of a party, our 50-year celebration. But you think of that. 50 years I've been chasing whitetails, fortunately, all over North America, and I met some great people, and it is about relationships. And so that's one thing that I'm doing with Whitetail Rendezvous and Jeremy's doing with Fit to Hunt, is we're building relationships that really matter. And we have a lot of similarities in our background and our beliefs, but more than that, we love chasing whitetails. And I don't know anybody that you can talk to at ATA or the Pope and Young organization or QDMA. They all are passionate about one thing, and that's whitetails. And we're blessed to have that.
Absolutely.
We are. So let's talk about your favorite setup. Now, you said you got a couple of farms, you're leasing some some land. What's your favorite setup and why?
Most of what I hunt at this point are very small tracts of land. And so what we end up doing, a lot of agriculture, so, your corn, your soybeans and whatnot. I've got one setup right now that is kind of my go-to. Actually, there's two stands within about 60 to 80 yards of one another. So depending upon the wind, that's kind of where I go. But it's just a pinch point. And, these deer are going to cross from one field to another. They're going to use a small little strip of woods to get into the bigger set, and it just becomes a whitetail highway. There's been mornings when the rut's hitting hard that I can't even keep my head on a swivel, basically, because they're coming from all directions at one time. That's pretty exciting. So that's my go-to set. Easy to get in, easy to get out. I can get in and out undetected. And, every time you find me, everybody's got that tree. It's just like home. It's your tree. That's my tree.
I get a few of those. Yeah. I'm fortunate. I've got a few of those. Okay, let's dissect that. You said you get in quiet, you hunt the wind. So walk us through, you're hunting the pinch point. Walk us through what you do, how close you park your truck or your ATV. Just walk us through when you're going in, let's say in the morning, and then we'll split it in the afternoon if you change it up.
Sure. I can actually get into it two different ways depending upon, how I want to go. You probably have guessed this already. I try to be as traditional as I possibly can. I don't use ATVs except to get the deer out of the woods. So I like to walk in. So it's about a quarter to a half mile depending on where I go. One access point, if I choose to go that route, is more like about a quarter of a mile. But, the thing that I like to do is, and again, talking with a lot of outfitters and a lot of friends of mine, I don't like noise, and I don't like taking, gators or ATVs or anything with an exhaust in there. I try to be as invisible as possible. So morning time or evening, depending upon the wind set on this particular one, I'm walking in. I got my gear, and I'm using the muscles that I work on all year long so that I can get in and out. And I always like to say be a ninja. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what we try to do.
It's funny. I hunt with some guys in Buffalo County, and in the morning, I don't use a flashlight. One, because I know where the stand is.
Yep.
But I don't even use a red, filter. And they coined the phrase years ago. They said, "Man, you're an old ninja." Because I know where I'm going, and like it or not, I have to switch the stands up because this stand I can't hunt all the time. I hunt it 3 days, then I let it go for 3 or 4 days, and then go back in. Because unless it's the peak of the rut, I tell that just by the movement. Are there deer going everywhere all day long? Then I'm sitting all day. I'll get in there at like 5 o'clock, an hour before dark. Before dawn, and I'm sitting there till dark again. And other than that, I only hunt a stand 3 days in a row at most, depending on the wind. The wind can change it up, and if the wind changes up, sounds like on your pinch point, you've got a place to sit. So let's talk about when you change it up and why you change it up.
I've noticed that there's a couple. I think everybody would know this. There's a couple places where we hunt in general. There's better morning versus better evening locations, and that's one of the things that I try to focus on too. Last year, I didn't strike out or get skunked. I ended up taking a really nice doe, but I didn't get the buck that I was after this year. And again, going back to that whole patience aspect, I'm okay with that. But the opening day of rifle season, I watched a large group of does come through right at the end of shooting light, and I let them all go. And the reason I did, I saw something in the back trailing it. Thought it was the buck, ended up being just another doe, but that's beside the point. The next morning, I knew based upon their travel patterns and the cameras that I knew exactly where they were going to come back, and lo and behold, about 7:10 on time, all of them come running back over the hill. So I went ahead and had several tags and hadn't filled the freezer with it. So my thing is, I like to look, I really use my cameras and try to understand where these guys are going to be based on time of day. I mean, the camera invention, beautiful thing because it does the work for you.
And more people are using them. One thing I hear, and I'm going to let you chime in on this, how many times during the season do you check your cameras?
Well, that's a good question because where I live and work and where the farm is about, a 2-hour drive. So it really does depend on, if I'm going to be able to go there and hunt several days in a row, whatnot. I probably don't check them as often as what others do. I'd say maybe once every 2 weeks or so. And honestly, I try to let them sit for a while because I don't like messing with an area too much. I think we all know this. You made the comment about not hunting a stand 3 times in a row. I don't care if you sneak in there out undetected or not. Those things just know. I don't know how they do. Maybe it's their nose. Maybe it's a sixth sense, but they just know. So when I'm in there, I try to get in and get out, leave as little scent as possible, and, really use other factors to, glass. To pay attention to, what's running through the field at that point when I'm down there. I've got a grandpa who's retired. Everybody needs an old man who just goes down to the farm and sits there with binoculars and then texts you and says, hey, they're moving. I mean, that's what I like. Everybody needs an old man.
Yeah, to sit the field. And that brings up a concept about long-distance scouting. Do you employ that?
You mean as far as like with glassing?
Yes.
I think it's fantastic. Some of the places that we're at on our property, the way it's set up, it makes it difficult to, really see some of the hot travel lanes. But no, I agree. I think that if you have the ability to just sit back and you can watch them in a field, I tend to see that more and more. I think there's several shows on television that come to mind, and I like outdoor TV that really tells the whole story. That goes in from the time they're planting the food plots, hanging the stands, to the early season scouting, and just sitting out there with a video camera or with some glasses and just watching these soybean fields and watching how these deer are coming out, what time they're coming out, what's in the inventory, how many bucks do you have, what are the does, what do we need to take off. I mean, that's the part. The gentleman I was out with the other day walking that property, that's what makes hunting awesome. The kill itself, I mean, we all know that. That's seconds, and it's over and done. To me, it's everything that goes into this process from the time that you plant that food plot or you hang that stand, what we preach, you're in the gym working hard so that you can draw back that bow when you need to, or you can, have the flexibility to turn and quarter away so you can make that difficult shot. Everything ties together for that 1 second where you're either going to be successful or you're not going to be successful. So, anything that, going back now to your question about the long-range scouting, Bruce, it's all part of the process. And I think that, in my opinion, whatever you can do to make yourself better, I think you do that.
And listeners, I hunt out west. I live in Colorado, so I've been hunting out for a long time. And I took a trip up into British Columbia and we were hunting sheep and goats, and you have to glass. I mean, you got to, get the spotting scope out, and you get your, heavy binoculars out, and put them up on a tripod and glass, because the guide simply said, Bruce, you can't walk enough land to find the sheep. You just can't do it. And so we have to glass. We know where we're glassing from. We get an idea where they're coming out. And I think about Wisconsin, where we hunt, and it's rolling terrain and agriculture mixed with hardwoods and river bottoms. And we got 4 or 5 places we can cover just about that whole farm, entry and exit points, and be half a mile away or up to a mile away. And the more we do that, guess what? The more deer we see, because just like Jeremy said, he knew when those deer were going to show up the next morning just because of the cameras and stuff. Well, if you do that and you don't hunt the stand, you just watch the day before. You just spend morning, noon, and afternoon glassing. And if they come out on that stand or that area, great. But if they don't, you're not going to waste your time because you know they're not going to be there tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Your thoughts on that, Jeremy?
I think you're right on the money. I mean, I can't remember if I read it, if I saw it, I get so many tips over the course of time, but without information, and honestly, I can tie this right back into a person's exercise. People come into a gym and they don't really know what they should be doing, and they just kind of flail around, and their experience may be ho-hum or so-so. Well, if you hang a stand in a tree and you've done no homework, you're not paying attention to food sources, what they're hitting out, what they may be hitting a month from now. You may just be going out and sitting in a tree and seeing nothing, or especially not seeing the deer that you're actually hunting. So you have to put in that preparation time, because if you don't, you may get a shot at a 2-year-old, but if you're looking for that 4.5, 5-year-old stud that's been out there that's been eluding you for the last season, 2 seasons, well, you're going to have to figure out and outthink and outsmart that guy, because he doesn't get to be 5 and 6 years old by being a dummy. He's a pretty smart dude. So you better be ready to go too, both mentally, physically, and you better have your homework done.
Jeremy, it's hard to believe, but we're almost at the end of the show, and I thank you so much for being in the show. So take 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and just give a shout out to whomever, and then we'll wrap the show.
A couple guys that I'm working with right now that I would really love to your listeners to support. One of them is Louis Mazzeo. He is the owner of a new product, not new product, been out for a while, but it's called Yo-Buck. It's the mineral product that we use on our property. The reason I want to give him such a shout out is I am a small business, and we tend to focus on helping other small businesses grow. This guy is the best around, a great product, an inexpensive product. It's a veteran-owned business. He started this thing in his garage. And, when I see what the bucks on our farm have done just by applying this mineral out there for the last few years, it really is cool, because we can feel very confident that we're not just recommending a product, we're recommending a product that works. Another gentleman who I would highly encourage your viewers, your listeners to check out would be from Field to Plate. That's what you want to look for on Instagram. Jeremiah Dowdery is changing the face of when a hunter harvests meat, how that meat is prepared. People talk all the time, well, it's too gamey, it's too this. This guy is an artist with what he does with food. And if you aren't following him, you need to subscribe to his blog and do it, because you will never look at the game that you harvest in the field again the same, because it is nothing short of a masterpiece with what he does with the recipes. I use multiple recipes that he posts on there. Good dude. You need to follow him.
Jeremy from Fit to Hunt, thank you so much for being the guest on the show, and I can't wait till we catch up next time.
Make sure you listen to the next episode where we hear about patience in the outdoors from Kaylee Jackson, host of The Talk on 97.7 FM Mountain Home.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.